I am Susan Odaya. I'm a property consultant. I also work for a property company. Looking at land ownership in Kenya today, very many people are going into land ownership. And basically these people look at having a sense of security. We also know that it is the current market trend. Land ownership is the current market trend. So as most people venture into land ownership, it is very important for us to understand why and what benefits do we get from owning land in Kenya today. According to the Kenyan Constitution, anyone in the country can own land. Any citizen can own land. But it is also important to know that non-citizens cannot own land in Kenya unless they are looking at ownership of property with a title deed that would be leasehold. But in terms of freehold title deed, a non-citizen would not be able to own land in Kenya. However, we have seen several instances where non-citizens have come and registered a private company in Kenya, and then the company owns property. But in terms of being alone, they cannot be able to own property on their own. It is also important to note that in the past, the history, people who have owned land in the past have been the elderly and the affluent in society. But currently that trend is being phased out. We are now seeing more young people owning land in the country, and basically it would be, the reason is just because they have now more access to credit facilities from financial institutions all over the country. The people own land because they also, want to get return on their investment, and they also want to have a retirement plan to look up to, in their retirement days. People own land because of various factors, but today I will look at the major factors, those that I deem major, and I know that people would consider land ownership for security purposes, so they probably would look at owning a piece of land just to make sure that the family has something to fall back onto. Kenyans own land for accumulation of wealth. In the past, there has been a lot of insecurities in terms of what does the family own, what do we go to, what does, when you get children, what do your children look up to. But currently, accumulation of wealth would be one of the reasons for people to own land. And we have land that goes, as cheap as 150,000. So one would prefer to have a piece of land that is going for, 150,000, but several of those, so that also there is enough wealth for the family to look at. The other factor that we're looking at is also speculation. One would buy land today, as an investment, but they are looking at what am I due to get in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So according to the market trend, then you will just come and speculate and buy this piece of land, maybe because you know that there's a bypass that is going to pass by that particular place, there's a road that is going to pass there, a shopping center that is going to, come up in the particular region. So as you speculate, then you just buy and hold on to it with the hope that in the next few years, the value of that property will appreciate, and therefore you will be able to reap from the property. Well, indeed, looking at the speculation aspect of it, there are very many other ways that an investor can be able to buy their property and reap from the same property. You find that most instances currently, property companies are coming up with a full package that entails the things that I'm going to mention, but also you can go your way. You can actually decide to do it on your own. I'm looking at things like greenhouses, I'm looking at things like open farming, I'm looking at things like low-cost housing. Probably I'll just look at this in detail a bit so that we get to understand what exactly we're looking at. So when we talk about a greenhouse farming, you erect a greenhouse structure, and then the farming takes place inside the greenhouse. So at the end of the day, we expect that tentatively a season of the most common common crops that capsicum and tomatoes would take 90 days. So ideally that is 3 months. So within 3 months, within the first 3 months, typically we expect that you have broken even. So the amount of money that you use to set up your greenhouse, you should be able to get the same returns in terms of the first season. Then thereafter, you will of course spend some little money to, you know, buy seeds and all that, but you will not need to set up another greenhouse. So at the end of the day, you will be getting to the tune of 300,000 per season, as opposed to just letting your land, you know, just stay open with nothing on it. So for me, that is a very good return on investment. And especially if you're just buying this property to sit on it for maybe 5 years before you decide what you want to do, then as you sit on it, you can have the greenhouse give you returns. There is also open farming. This is the ordinary farming that we do daily. So in this case, you will just need the seeds and probably a bit of fertilizer here and there, and then you're good to go. So ideally for me, this is also something that you expect returns from your farm. So as opposed to just having the farm, you know, sitting idle there, then you are also getting a return on your investment. So for me, the piece of advice I would give, you know, young people is that as you sit in your office, be an urban farmer. So you sit in your office and you are also farming where your farm is located. So at the end of the day, you will be expecting to get some returns. The other thing I would look at critically would be low-cost housing. So as we buy property today, you expect to get return from that property. So something is coming up in the center, something is coming up where you are, maybe a road, maybe what. So as you look at that, then one of the things you would be looking at in terms of you know, value addition to the property is low-cost housing. And low-cost housing does not mean that you compromise the quality of the house. It only means that you use the readily available materials in the market that would also be cheaper, but maintain the same standards and quality that are required to have a stable house. So for me, while you're trying to, you know, make use of these readily available materials and at a low cost, you are also saving on something, and at the end of the day, you expect some return on the investment. Finally, as we look at the process of land ownership in Kenya, it is important to get to understand that I am going to mention the very basic way of land acquisition in Kenya, but it can be as complicated as you want it to be. So today in the market, there are very many reliable property companies that you can be able to contact, and they will do all these transactions that you need to do individually. So you don't need to really move around. At the end of the day, what you need is just to validate that the info you're getting from these people is the correct information. So despite looking at the property companies that we have in the industry, we would also be very keen at how then do I get to learn that there is a property that is existent somewhere. So you will get to learn from these property selling companies through their adverts, through their sales agents. And after you have learned of land that is existing somewhere, get to be in contact with this property selling company, get to understand that what they are selling has got a search against it. So they ought to have conducted a search against it. However, if they are not able to, you have an option to conduct your own search through your lawyer, or you can decide to go the same way on your own. So once you have conducted the search, then get to find the mutation map, so that you get to see that this property has been subdivided. So once you get the mutation map, then plan to visit the site, and then for a site visit. So once you have gone to the site, then you will be able to locate where exactly your property is. Be keen to make sure that you have seen your beacons so that you know exactly where your land is located. Once that is done, then now we are good to go. You can sign your sale agreement, you can pay for your property, and then after the payment, definitely the next documentation that will be done is a letter of transfer that basically transfers ownership from the vendor now to you, the buyer. So after that, you will sit and wait for your title deed. And that is basically if you're going through the property selling companies. One thing that I forgot to mention is that a sale agreement is a binding document. So it is actually legally binding. So as you get this sale agreement, you are now walking into a legal agreement with the vendor, and you get to understand that, that now things are becoming a bit, serious. So get to understand the terms of engagement so that you are not also putting yourself in a trap, or you are not getting a raw deal for that matter. It is also important to know that most of these land selling companies are one-stop shop, like I mentioned. So you will get a legal advisor from them. You will get someone who will take you through the sales process. You will get a department that will take you through what exactly you need to understand in terms of marketing and all that. You will get someone who will just be there to take care of your needs as a client. That is the customer service. And so my thinking is that for a new first-time buyer, it is safer for you to work with a property company as opposed to working with an individual when you're getting this property. Also, it is also important for you to know that there's a sense of security in working with a property company as opposed to working with an individual. Popularly, they say, do not wait to buy land. Buy and wait. But in my thinking, buy, add value, then wait.